This is the BEnergyAware Podcast. Hi, and welcome to the BEnergyAware Podcast. This podcast is here to help you be confident and empowered, and is brought to you by Get Empowered audiobook and Patreon. You can find a link to both in the description of this episode. In this episode, I talk with Dr. Eric Zielinski, a public health researcher, author, and speaker, who earlier in his life dealt with anxiety, panic, and clinical depression. Dr. Zielinski shares about the healing power of plants, about his recent research discoveries, and talks about living a holistic life with the help of essential oils and healthy natural practices.
Yes, and first of all, thank you so much for having me. It is really a privilege and an honor to share this with your community, because as we talk a little bit more about how essential oils can help with a variety of different health conditions, one of the things that really marked my life was coming from a place where I dealt with anxiety and panic and clinical depression to where I'm at today, and I'm completely free. I'm completely well, and I've seen the healing power of plants and of just living a good, old-fashioned, holistic life can do a number of wonderful things on people. And for someone that doesn't know what essential oils are, they're essentially plant-based medicine directly from the leaves, the roots, the bark of a variety of different plant species. And so when you put your nose into a rose, and a lot of people love the aroma of rose, you're smelling a physical particle that's being emitted from the rose. It's known as a volatile organic compound. Volatile meaning it readily evaporates, organic meaning it's carbon-based, and a compound meaning it's a variety of different molecules. And when you look at an essential oil, you have upwards to 200 to 300 different plant chemicals in that one compound of essential oils. And so when you get roughly 2,000, it's hard to conceptualize, but when you get roughly up to like 2,000 rose petals, you steam distill that and you get an itty bitty bottle of rose that will roughly give you like 80 some drops. And so we're talking about concentrated plant matter. And lavender, you have to roughly take 3 pounds of lavender flowers just to get one 15 milliliter bottle of lavender, which is roughly like 250 plus drops. And so essential oils are funny in this way. They're not essential and they're not oils. Well, where the name come from? Well, as our ancestors enjoyed the plants and as they extracted the essential oils through the plant-based salves and herbal extracts, they felt, and they still do, we all feel that essential oils are really the essence of aroma. They're the essence of the healing power of plants, but they're not essential, meaning that they're not an essential bioactive compound that you need to live. Like they're not like carbs or vitamins or minerals or fats or proteins, where if you are deficient in any one of those, that could be life-threatening. So essential oils are technically known as a secondary metabolite. They are wonderfully effective, wonderfully helpful, and beneficial, and that's where we use them to enhance our life. And another little tidbit, they're not oils, meaning that they're not like olive oil where you cold press the olive and you get that greasy residue in your hand, or coconut oil or grapeseed oil. They're lipophilic, fat-loving, hydrophobic, water-hating compounds, which means they readily, and this is the important part, which means they readily dissolve in fat. So when you apply an essential oil on your hand, here's what happens. So all that technical jargon to explain practical, like why is this important? Well, if you were to drop an essential oil, let's say lavender, on the back of your hand, you immediately start to smell the aroma. Why? It's because it's volatile. It starts to evaporate immediately. It starts to just disperse in the air. And that physical property interacts with your nose and it stimulates the olfactory system, the most powerful primal part of your brain, where your mood, your memory, your emotions, and your autonomic function is managed. Heart rate, breathing rate, respiratory rate, all these things managed in what's known as the limbic system. And that's all stimulated from what you smell. Also, if you put a drop of essential oils on the back of your hand, it immediately penetrates into your skin, into your bloodstream, because it's transdermal. That's where the wonderful chemistry behind essential oils works because it's lipophilic and hydrophobic. So all that to say is when you look at traditional aromatherapy, yeah, we think about our ancestors burning leaves or roots or incense. All that is wonderful. But what I do is I'm a public health researcher who uses essential oils as medicine. And I combed through the thousands and thousands of research studies. And that's what I did in my upcoming book, The Essential Oils Apothecary, to show how essential oils can have a medicinal effect on the body, because that's exactly what the science has shown.
Well, some people said that essential oils can heal almost anything. What's your take on that?
Good question. First of all, nothing can heal anything all the time. There's no panacea. I think that's something that we need to recognize. However, there are things that can help people. And that's where essential oils come into play. I've heard stories. That people have told us, like, nothing worked for my diabetes. But when I started using cinnamon bark essential oil, well, yeah, the research shows that it has an insulin sensitivity enhancing property. It can help balance blood glucose. Some people swear by the fact that taking 2 drops of cinnamon in a gel capsule helps manage their blood pressure or their blood sugar. Other people use ylang ylang for their blood pressure for people that are hypertensive. Other people use lavender to help them with insomnia. People use D-limonene rich oils. D-limonene is a chemical that we oftentimes find in citrus plants and citrus fruits. So people have used those oils to fight cancer. So the thing about essential oils are, no, they're not the cure-all. They're not the silver bullet, but I found that they're absolutely wonderfully effective in helping manage symptoms. First of all, symptoms related to pain, sleep, everything from low libido, stress, and anxiety. But at the core, one thing they do is kind of uncanny and it's fascinating. They help your body heal. They're rich in antioxidants, which helps with free radical oxidative damage. They are bioactive compounds that can actually reduce inflammation, which is essentially a buzzword nowadays for the root cause of every chronic condition, right? The inflammatory immune response in the body responding to a toxin or a noxious event, something dangerous where the body just stimulates that inflammation. But the problem is when people are chronically inflamed due to mental health concerns, emotional imbalance, due to toxins that are being emitted in the air, or toxins that they find on their body care. What people are finding, even with food, is that chronic inflammation has been linked to virtually every disease that is crippling man and womankind: cancer, diabetes, obesity, autoimmune conditions. Inflammation is of the brain is tied directly to Alzheimer's and dementia. So, can essential oils play a part in that? I believe they can. And that's where we try to balance things out. And in the book, The Essential Oils Apothecary, we propose a holistic life that, yeah, I'll leave the exercise to the fitness experts. I'll leave the nutrition to the nutrition experts. I'll leave the mind body focus on the meditation experts and the spiritual experts. But one thing I can help you with is I want to remind you that we need to focus on all of it. And that's really the key, is that we are essentially proposing a natural lifestyle that incorporates plant-based medicine in a variety of ways. And so to answer your question, I cannot think of having anything else in my medicine cabinet for simple things like nausea or indigestion, or for headaches or migraines or chronic pain or fibromyalgia. But I want to incorporate essential oils into my daily lifestyle. That's why I have a diffuser behind me instead of an aerosol, like those aerosol sprays that might be spraying toxic chemicals that we know cause inflammation in the brain, that we know cause irritation in the lungs, that have been linked to Alzheimer's, dementia, autoimmunity, allergies, ADHD. So I systematically help people replace the toxins in your life. And that's really all of chapter 3 of the book: how to replace the toxins in your life with essential oil-based properties. Because essential oils are the real fragrances, the natural fragrances that your body knows what to do with. These synthetic fragrances, your body doesn't know what to do with. They are a chemical that our body has not been designed to interact with. So they always will produce some sort of side effect. But here's the key. If used properly and safely, essential oils will not have any side effects at all, unless, of course, you might be allergic to it, which is quite rare. So, all that to say is that we encourage people to look at plant based medicine, including essential oils, as a primary first approach to certain things and chronic conditions, and then see where that goes.
I really get what you're saying. And with any good thing, throughout the history, it's been kind of there are good things and people embrace it, and then there's a kind of a can be a kind of a backlash, and there's some negative things as well. Is there anything around that when it comes to essential oils?
Well, there are potential drug interactions. And in the book, I actually list it's the most exhaustive list, most up to date list of drug interactions that are potentially, that people could potentially be at risk for when they use essential oils. That's in the book. But again, that is something that people need to be careful of with anything. Whether it's a supplement, whether it's certain food, like people on certain heart disease medication cannot eat or grapefruit or drink grapefruit juice, right? So it's something that if someone is already at risk, if someone already has a comorbidity, if someone is already taking a pharmaceutical, then yeah, you need to be careful just in general, because non-plant-based medicine, which are pharmaceuticals, they hack into the body to produce a desired response, but it's unnatural. And there could be, because of that, a lot of different interactions within. So, other than that, no. I mean, plant based aromatherapy and plant based medicine has been used since the beginning of time. And so, it's one of those things where now it's kind of exciting because the research is catching up with what our ancestors have been doing traditionally. Like, perfect example is rosemary. Ask any herbalist, ask any historian, what is rosemary? Well, it's the herb of remembrance. It's in Shakespeare. That's what our ancestors have always noticed and found. By when you inhale the blossoms and the beautiful aroma of rosemary, it just keeps you mentally acute. Well, it's clinically proven now that rosemary essential oil is a primary compound on that, and it actually helps you with mental cognitive function. So we are seeing that more and more and more. And as a public health researcher, that's really my job. And that's my responsibility is, okay, let's see what tradition says. Let's see what aromatherapists do. Because I'm not an aromatherapist. I'm a trained public health researcher. I'm an author. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. So I see what aromatherapists do, what tradition tells us, what the books say. And then I'm like, okay, what does science? Can science confirm it? And essentially everything that we're laying out for people in our books and our classes and all the things that we do are evidence-based solutions that the researchers are coming up with to health problems that people deal with today. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful journey that's always evolving.
One thing that keeps coming up and keeps coming up for a lot of people is anxiety.
Yeah.
So, essential oils and anxiety. Let's talk about that.
Well, in my book, I talk about 5 missing gems, I call it. These are 5 things that anyone, and quite frankly, all of us, because who doesn't deal with stress to some level? And how can you not have some sort of anxiety just being alive today in the culture that we live in with everything that we've dealt with in the past year? It's horrendous, the amount of stress and overwhelm that people are going through. It's a tremendous burden that everyone on the planet, unlike any time and I want to validate something, I want to acknowledge this. Unlike any time in the history of the world, this phenomenon that we've experienced in 2020 and now 2021 has affected everybody. Now, when you look back at the world wars or look back at other global catastrophes, they're typically isolated in certain geographic locations. Everyone, every culture, every person, every country has been affected and stressed at some point by what's happened in the last year and a half or so. And so when I was really meditating on this and I was writing the book, I want to point out 5 things that people really need to think about and focus on when it comes to proper stress and anxiety management. And number 1 is aromatherapy, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Number 2, though, is to be careful about 3 triggers that people go to cope with stress and anxiety, but oftentimes exasperate it: alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine. So you think you're having a stress reducing activity. You think because you're anxious, you get a smoke, you grab a beer, a glass of wine, you're so tired in the morning, you have your shot of espresso. But that exasperates the sympathetic nervous system, that excites us unnaturally, that causes an inflammatory response in the body. And there are other neurological mechanisms that exasperate the anxiety and stress. So I want to caution people, if you're really struggling with anxiety right now, or stress, if you're overwhelmed, completely abstain from or limit alcohol, caffeine, or nicotine consumption. Another one that people don't talk a lot about are electromagnetic frequency. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that EMFs cause cellular stress. And we have seen through HRV, heart rate variability studies, how certain technology, which I actually talk about in the book, how certain technology can help protect you or reduce that damage. So I just want to be cautious that it's impossible now, virtually impossible, to avoid EMFs on any level. And when you compound the stress that we're already dealing, and when you compound the stress that we're adding to our body with poor food choices and really struggling to manage emotionally what's happening around us, then EMF only exasperates the issue. One thing I recommend is regular detoxification. And that could be doing something as simple as a juice fast, or just eating fruits and vegetables for a day, like allowing your body to cleanse itself. There are much more in-depth and intense detoxification protocols, but just know that the accumulation of chemicals that are in the foods chain accumulates in our body. And that causes a stress response that we know through the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight response. And last, this missing gem is something that more and more people have fallen into, like the proverbial falling on their knees because they've hit rock bottom, is prayer or daily spiritual reflection. There's never been a more important time in history than to have that sacred moment, than to have that sacred ritual, because that will truly help you when things are overwhelming. Because what else do you do? I mean, truthfully speaking, where else do you go? How would you manage something that is so far beyond your ability to control, which a lot of people are struggling through right now, but other than to release it to a higher power? Focus on something that you know will help you stay grounded, like yoga, meditation, going outside and practice forest bathing. Now, forest bathing is the tie-in to the aromatherapy piece. Clinically proven forest bathing. It's a practice in Japan that's a wonderful way of utilizing the natural aromatic compounds that are in plants in nature in its natural form for stress reduction and immune boosting. So early on in the pandemic, when everyone was sheltering in place and people were stuck inside, up until that, on average, the human population was spending roughly 93% of their entire lives indoors. Well, that's only higher because of what's happened in the last year and a half. And we have no record because the studies haven't been done, but I'm guessing literally up to 99%. Some people, 100%, they're not ever leaving. Up to 99+% of people are spending their time, or 99% of people's time are spent indoors. What does that mean? What's the danger of that? Well, being outside is inherently healing for a number of reasons. Yes, you get the negative ions from plants and from the water sources if you're by a stream or river or waterfall. Yes, you get the vitamin D from the sun. Yes, you hear the birds chirping, and that just stimulates an anti-anxiety, stress relieving effect. By the way, studies have shown that listening to sounds of nature are stress anxiety reducing, but listening to synthetic industrial sounds like cars or motors running or just the sounds of the city produce a stress response. One's parasympathetic, you rest and digest. The other one's sympathetic, which is fight or flight. So when you're out in nature, the key is just to be. This is when you flip the switch and we're no longer a human doer. We become, again, a human being, right? Again, what are we? We're human doers. We do. What about being? What about just enjoying ourselves, being in the moment? So there's a practice in Japan that's regular. It's like something to another level that we've never experienced in America or other countries about embracing the forest, embracing nature as a healing agent. And so the key to all of it, and this is what really blew my mind. When I wrote the book, I was shocked at the amount of research and the significance of breathing in the plant-based compounds in nature itself. Yes, because I study aromatherapy. I'm an essential oil educator. I really focus on extracting those plant-based compounds in the essential oil and diffusing them, using them in my topical applications and my perfumes and colognes, all the things that we make at home. But when you're in nature, it has an even more profound effect. Studies have shown that if you're outside in a forest, a densely wooded area, or even a park with trees around you, and you're breathing in those volatile organic compounds that are being emitted from the trees. And think about this. If you smell grass after grass is being cut, that's because the essential oil is being emitted from the grass out into the air, and you smell that fresh grass. I love the smell. When you, again, put your nose into a flower and you smell the beautiful aroma, this essential oil. When you're walking in a forest and you smell just this earthy, wonderful cornucopia of smells, that's all the essential oils being emitted from the trees and the plants and everything else. That is exceptionally healing. And that's exceptionally stress reducing. And that could help people for weeks on end. Studies have showed that 1 2-hour forest bathing session, basically go out to nature, spend a couple hours with your family, your friends. Don't worry about hiking. Don't worry about doing anything, but just enjoying yourself. Some people like to sit down. Some people read a book. Some people just wander. Some people take photography. Some people will practice yoga. Whatever, just be out in nature for a little while. And a 2-hour forest bathing session has been clinically shown to have an increased effect on your natural killer cells, which are the immune cells that kill cancer, and help boost mood, reduce stress and anxiety. It has a lasting effect of up to 4 weeks. So, yes, we understand. I mean, I'm a father of 5. I run an online business. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I'm inside doing interviews. I'm not outside right now. So I can't spend all day outdoors. I get that. But what I'll do is I'll bring outside in. That's where essential oils come into play. So yes, I might not be able to enjoy the woodsy oils that I love, the spruces and the pines and the cedar woods, but now I could go buy a cedarwood essential oil, pine, Douglas fir is my favorite, spruce. There are a number of tree oils. A lot of people love frankincense. That's a resin from a tree, or myrrh. Copaiba is another tree oil. Vetiver. I'm just naming them off because whatever is readily available to you, even sandalwood or cedarwood, get your get your hands on a bottle or two. Maybe borrow some from a friend who you know is an essential oil junkie or an aromatherapist or a distributor for one of the network marketing companies. Get your hands on some oils and put them in your water diffuser. You can get these water diffusers at Amazon for just $20-$30. I mean, they're really cost effective. And you just put some water in a water tank, 3, 4, 5 drops of essential oil, and just let that steam diffuse and disperse throughout the air. That right there is your way of bringing outside in, bringing the outdoors in. And now you have more of a control with your environment. And if you're fortunate enough to live nearby a forest, or if you have a park nearby, get outside. Try to make it a daily practice to at least be outside, to breathe some fresh air, get near some trees, and just enjoy that for a few 15, 20 minutes if you can. And if you have the luxury of maybe going away for a half a day, like a day trip, go to a forest, go to a national or state park or a country sanctuary. And so that's really the healing power of essential oils. And that's why I focused in my book on how utilizing the healing properties of the plants in our daily interaction can help with these chronic conditions. And the reason I mentioned stress and anxiety first in my list of all of the different conditions that are plaguing people is because of its effect on virtually every disease. Because if we can fix the anxiety and stress issue, that right there is the root cause of the root mechanism that is killing people. And inflammation, by and large, is the root mechanism that the body is in constant chronically inflamed state that has been triggered to every major cause of death next to accidents. Other than accidents, any disease, chronic condition, cancer, diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's, COPD, chronic obstructive respiratory disorder, any or pulmonary disorder, any chronic condition is linked to inflammation. But what causes the inflammation? Well, that's stress and that's anxiety. And that there's a number of other things, right? But when it comes to poor food choices and other things that can happen, but are the things that we can manage our response to stress and our response to anxiety and not let it ruin our lives.
I do have one question. I feel I want to ask this question. So, what's your favorite use for essential oils, personally?
You know, ever since the pandemic, myself and everyone I know has just been spending more time indoors. And so going back to what I just shared about forest bathing and about being drawn, really being drawn to outside and bringing that in. I love the trees. I love being outside. I love nature. So my favorite way right now, and it changes over time, my favorite way of utilizing essential oils is mixing Douglas fir, which has a wonderfully sweet citrusy aroma to it, with orange oil. So I have orange essential oil and Douglas fir, and I blend them together. And there's a couple different ways that I like to use them, but there's my water diffuser that I shared with you earlier. There's a simple body salve, body oil that you can make with just 1 ounce of olive oil or coconut oil or jojoba or sweet almond, whatever carrier oil you want. But if you put 6 drops of orange oil in there and 6 drops of Douglas fir, that's a wonderful, safe, diluted mixture that you can apply after you get out of the shower, or if you just want to have a moisturizer, or if you just want a nice pick me up. That's a wonderful, wonderful body oil. I like to I like to enjoy that. And there's a million other things that we like to do with essential oils, incorporating like a drop of peppermint in my matcha latte, or actually I like cinnamon bark too with that. But we use essential oils in every area of life that you would see a fragrance or a flavoring. And I'll leave you with that. Anything that is synthetic, anything that has a synthetic fragrance to, or anything that has a synthetic, unnatural flavor to, think about all your processed foods, think about all your cleaners or body care. It's either natural based, which are essential oils, or it's a synthetic version that has a harmful effect on the body. So, what we've done is we've converted our entire home, our lifestyle. So, whether it's body care, cleaning products, whether it's toothpaste, or you name it, aerosols, poo poo sprays in the toilet, whatever it might be, what we use is simply what our ancestors used. It's essential oil based versus the chemical version. And that to me is that's the secret to living a truly healthy, abundant life without struggling with chronic disease and conditions, especially anxiety and stress. Because you're putting your body in the position where it's not always defending against toxins, where it is allowed to process things and your body can heal.
Okay, well, I guess I have just, one more question. Where can listeners find you online and find the book as well?
Yeah, well, first, again, thank you so much for having me. It really is an honor. And I hope that something that was said today inspires and encourages people that, we're not a victim of our circumstances and we're not a victim of the genetic lottery. Like, I truly believe that God's given us what we need in nature to live a truly healthy, abundant life. And it's just a matter of finding what works for you. And maybe it's lavender, maybe some people like ylang ylang, or it might be neroli oil, or it might be a certain food or a certain meditative practice. But the truth is, there's a solution for you. There's a solution for me. And like I used to struggle with depression and anxiety and panic attacks, I found the solution for me. And so I want to encourage you with that. And if anything in this chat inspired you to investigate more about essential oils, please, please, please pick up my new book, The Essential Oils Apothecary. It's available everywhere books are sold. And I have a special gift for people that buy the book. My wife and I recorded a series of demo videos of how to make many of the recipes and remedies in the book. And unfortunately, I couldn't write 1,000-page book. My publisher, they limit you because, the spine will break of the book. Like, you can only have so many pages, right? And so instead of it being a huge textbook, we write books that are consumable by the average consumer. And so there's a lot of information I just couldn't include. Like, we cut out thousands of words of the manuscript. Well, that's where the videos come into play, where my wife and I share a lot of the things that we just didn't have space for in the book, and we couldn't. So go to eoapothecary.com, and then you get the book, you sign up, you access to get those demo videos, and we have some other special gifts to help you get the most out of the book.
Thanks again to Dr. Zielinski. If you have any thoughts about what's been shared in this episode, feel free to leave a comment or get in touch with me through Instagram at BEnergyAware or through my website, BEnergyAware.com. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts is always much appreciated. And please share this podcast with your friends. I'm Bran, your host, and I'll talk to you next week.